he made it to the NBA, even after being homeless. How does someone go from having no home, no security, and nowhere to turn to signing $100 million contracts and becoming one of the league's biggest stars? This is the incredible journey of Jimmy Butler. You'd never guess he once had nowhere to live, because as a kid he grew up in one of the wealthiest cities in Texas. Life seemed normal until everything fell apart. At just 13 years old, Jimmy's world came crashing down. His dad walked out without a word, and the person who was supposed to protect him, his own mother, couldn't even look at him anymore because he reminded her too much of the man who left. One day, she looked him in the eye and said, "I don't like the way you look. You gotta go." Just like that, Jimmy found himself out on the streets.
Jimmy's mom had kicked him out, and with nowhere to call home, he bounced from one friend's couch to another all through high school. You'd think that surviving on his own as a teenager would be hard enough, but his road to the NBA was about to get even tougher. On days when no one could take him in, Jimmy wandered the streets alone. The Texas heat beat down like an oven, making every step feel heavier. Nights were the worst, quiet, long, and filled with thoughts about whether he'd ever escape this life. But deep down, even in those moments, Jimmy carried something that couldn't be taken away, an unshakable belief that this wasn't where his story would end.
Living like that pushed Jimmy to make a choice that would change everything. Growing up in Texas, football was king, and it was his first love. Basketball? That was third on the list. But he hated the scorching sun, hated sweating in the brutal heat. And on top of that, he was small. Everyone else was getting bigger, stronger, and he didn't want to get crushed on the field. So he decided to move indoors, into the cool air of the gym and aim for that bright orange rim. He didn't know it then, but this simple decision would shape his future. Without wasting time, Jimmy signed up for basketball at Tomball High School and made himself a promise. He was going to be more than just a player. He was going to become a star.
In his senior year, Jimmy's basketball journey was just beginning when he met his new best friend, Jordan Leslie. What started as a friendship quickly turned into something much deeper. Jordan would casually say, "You can stay tonight, my mom won't care," and one night turned into a week, then a month. Before Jimmy realized it, he wasn't just crashing at a friend's house, he had found a real home. For the first time in years, he felt love, stability, and a sense of belonging. He knew this family had taken a huge risk letting a stranger into their lives, and that trust meant everything to him. Jimmy made a silent promise to never let them down, to work harder than ever, and to make their belief in him worth it.
At Tyler Junior College, Jimmy Butler finally felt like he belonged. For the first time in his life, he had real hope. He set his sights on something almost impossible for a kid who had once been homeless, the NBA. From the very first game, he lit it up with 33 points. And he remembers walking off the court thinking, "Is this real? Can I really do this every night?" Then the next game, he scored 35, proving it wasn't just luck. Jimmy wasn't just surviving anymore, he was dominating. Every shot, every drive, every rebound was his way of saying, "I'm here and I'm not going back." But as incredible as it felt, deep down he knew junior college wasn't the finish line. Dropping 30 a night at that level didn't guarantee anything. For Jimmy, it was just the beginning of a climb that would test him harder than ever before, because the world still doubted him, and the road to the NBA was only getting tougher.
Jimmy's fight for recognition was nothing short of a war. He knew that if he wanted even the smallest chance at chasing his NBA dream, he had to stand out enough to be recruited by a top university. But that was easier said than done. On his own team, there was already a star who seemed to own the spotlight, the guy every scout had their eyes on. Jimmy felt like a shadow, fighting for scraps of attention, wondering if anyone would ever notice him. The pressure was suffocating. Every time he touched the ball, he thought, "If I miss this shot or mess up this pass, I'm done." Scouts weren't there for him, they were there for the other guy. And yet, instead of breaking under that weight, Jimmy decided he would flip it. He locked in, sharpened every move, every shot, every defensive stand, determined that when the moment came, he'd be undeniable. He noticed Buzz Williams, the assistant coach at Marquette, kept showing up. Buzz was there for his teammate, but Jimmy wanted to change that. In his mind, he told himself, "You picked the wrong guy to bet on, and I'm going to prove it." That fire carried him through practices and games, turning every possession into an audition for his future. And when Buzz finally pulled him aside and said, "If I ever become a head coach, you'd be the kind of player I'd want," Jimmy knew his grind was paying off. It wasn't just about recognition anymore. It was survival, hunger, and the desperate need to prove that no matter how overlooked he was, he belonged.
At Marquette, Jimmy Butler faced the kind of challenge that could make or break a young player. Getting the call from Coach Buzz felt like a dream come true, and Jimmy wasted no time committing, even without visiting the campus. But once he got there, reality hit hard. This was no longer junior college where he could dominate on pure will. The competition was brutal. Every player wanted the same thing he did, to reach the NBA. And the man standing in front of him on the depth chart was Wesley Matthews, already on the radar of NBA scouts. Jimmy panicked. He felt his dream slipping away before it even began, convinced he would never get enough minutes to prove himself. The doubt was real, and for a kid who had already fought through so much, this felt like another mountain too steep to climb. But Coach Buzz knew exactly what he had in Jimmy, and he refused to let him settle. He pushed him harder than anyone else on the team. 5:30 in the morning, before the sun was even up, Jimmy was already drenched in sweat, running drills that felt more like punishment than training. The workouts were relentless, almost cruel, and there were nights Jimmy wanted to quit for good. He thought about transferring, thought about giving up basketball altogether, just packing his bags and going home. He was homesick, exhausted, and still just a kid trying to figure life out. But deep down, that fire inside him wouldn't let him walk away. Buzz was hard on him, not because he wanted to break him, but because he believed Jimmy had the potential to become something special. And while Jimmy couldn't see it yet, those grueling mornings and lonely nights were shaping him into the player and the man who could survive anything the NBA threw at him.
Jimmy didn't realize it back then, but every setback, every time he was overlooked, was turning into the fuel he needed most. He waited quietly, always grinding, while Wesley Matthews was out there dominating and proving he belonged in the NBA. Every highlight from Wesley felt like a challenge thrown straight at Jimmy. Work harder, get better, push past the doubt. And then, fate stepped in. Wesley left Marquette for the league, leaving behind a huge hole in the lineup. The starting spot was open, and suddenly, all eyes turned to Jimmy. Coaches knew how much he had been working, and teammates expected him to step up as the new leader. The problem was, Jimmy wasn't sure he was ready. He had been through so much and worked so hard, but deep inside, he still questioned himself. Scouts didn't see him as NBA material. No team had even put his name on a list. He knew he had one season left to prove everyone wrong, or his dream would disappear forever. Then, Wesley came back with the words that changed Jimmy's life. He told him, "Yo, you can play in the league. Simple, direct, but powerful enough to light a fire that would never burn out." For the first time, Jimmy truly believed the NBA was possible. Not just Europe, not just a paycheck, the real league, the best of the best. From then on, he attacked the season with a new purpose. Every game mattered. Every possession was a test. He played with a chip on his shoulder, scoring over 15 points a night, hitting clutch shots, and dragging Marquette into March Madness. He delivered back-to-back wins when it mattered most, showing everyone he was no longer just a role player. He was the guy you could count on. But even after all of that, Jimmy only had one thing on his mind: going pro. So after the 2011 season, he declared for the NBA draft. That night was everything he had worked for. Bright lights, the best prospects in the country, all waiting for their names to be called. Jimmy knew the competition was fierce. The Cavaliers picked Kyrie Irving, the Bobcats called Kemba Walker, the Warriors drafted Klay Thompson, the Pacers took Kawhi Leonard. One by one, stars of the future walked on stage, while Jimmy sat there in silence, waiting. His name never came. Teams didn't think he was athletic enough. They didn't see the speed, the flash, the highlight plays. To them, he wasn't worth the gamble. With each pick, Jimmy's dream felt like it was slipping away. Until finally, the commissioner returned to the podium with the last pick of the first round. With the 30th pick in the 2011 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select Jimmy Butler from Marquette University. In that instant, everything changed. From being kicked out of his own home to being overlooked by scouts, Jimmy Butler had just made it. He was officially an NBA player, and the world was about to see how wrong they had been about him.
Jimmy broke down in tears with his mom, not because he wanted to prove the haters wrong, but because he finally proved himself right. All those voices that said he wouldn't graduate, wouldn't go to college, wouldn't make the NBA, none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that he believed, he fought, and he made it. But for Jimmy, just making the league was never the end goal. That was only the beginning.
From being homeless at 13 to becoming a professional athlete, he knew his story was bigger than basketball. It was about hope. It was about showing the world that no matter where you start, you can rise to something greater. Jimmy Butler wasn't satisfied with being good or even with being an all-star. He wanted to chase greatness, to push himself beyond limits, and to inspire millions of people who felt like the odds were stacked against them. Because if Jimmy could do it, anyone could. And today, when you see him out there diving for loose balls, hitting clutch shots, locking down the best player on the other team, you understand this is a man who carries his past with him and turns it into fire. He's proof that toughness, belief, and resilience can turn pain into power. So here's my question for you. Do you think Jimmy Butler will one day become an NBA champion? The ultimate ending to his story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey, make sure you check out the next video right here.